I opened the flash drive. My granddaughter slipped under my door and heard my son plotting to use her. After skipping his father's funeral. Hey there. Before we dive in, I just want to say thank you for being here. Whatever you're doing right now, take a moment. Because today's story is one of those that hits in places we don't always talk about: family, grief, silence, and the hard truth about what we owe to the people we love. You ever had to choose between speaking up or keeping the peace? Ever watched someone you loved disappoint you so quietly it almost didn't make a sound? Well, so did she. And what she did next might surprise you. Stick around till the end to see how this unfolds. And if stories like this matter to you, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Thanks for listening. Let's begin.
They say you never forget the moment your life splits in two. For me, it was over coffee. Not a metaphorical, soul-searching type of moment either. I mean literally a mug of coffee. It was a Tuesday morning and my husband, Emmett, was halfway through a joke about my inability to buy the right brand of creamer. He always found that funny. I always found it annoying. Looking back, I'd give anything to hear that stupid laugh one more time. Emmett chuckled, tapped his spoon against the mug, and said, "If this almond nonsense kills me, at least I'll go out with flavor." His lips curled into a grin, but his eyes went wide a second later. The spoon slipped from his fingers. The mug cracked against the countertop. And just like that, he collapsed forward. I screamed his name before my knees even hit the tile. By the time the paramedics arrived, all I could do was step back and nod as they muttered words like cardiac arrest, unresponsive, and eventually time of death. He was gone before 9 a.m. And just like that, I wasn't a wife anymore. The house was too quiet, too still, like even the walls had gone silent in mourning. I sat on the couch, still holding Emmett's phone, my own forgotten in the chaos. And as the shock set in, instinct took over. I called our son Riker, our only child. My voice shook, but I managed to say it. "Riker, it's Dad. He's gone. He collapsed this morning." There was a pause. Not shock, not disbelief, just a pause. "Today? Are you serious?" "Mom, it's Tasha's birthday. We're hosting brunch right now. Can we talk later?" And that was it. The moment I realized I hadn't just lost my husband, I had lost my son too. I didn't reply. I simply ended the call and let the silence fill the space where grief and rage couldn't coexist yet. I stared at the chair Emmett used to sit in, worn leather, torn on the left armrest where he always rested his elbow. It looked empty now, and haunted. I sat beside it for what must have been hours. Eventually, I climbed the stairs and collapsed onto our bed. Still unmade from the morning. His scent lingered on the sheets. His phone vibrated once on the nightstand. I picked it up. One missed call from last night. To Riker. No answer. No voicemail. He tried to reach his son the night before he died. And he died without hearing back. I didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. After the funeral. After the whispers about Riker's absence started spreading like wildfire among the guests. After Tasha posted a photo of herself holding a mimosa, captioned, "Another year around the sun." Feeling so loved, I was going to ignore it all. I was going to write it off as selfishness, immaturity, youth. But then I found something Emmett had kept from me. Something in his old file drawer labeled, "Trust." I wasn't looking for secrets. I wasn't even sure why I opened that old drawer in Emmett's office, the one with the stiff hinges and the brass label slots he never bothered replacing. Maybe it was muscle memory. Maybe it was grief trying to turn itself into action. Or maybe deep down I already knew something was. The folder was navy blue slim, and labeled in Emmett's blocky handwriting, "Trust." That was it. No date. No subtitle. Just that word in all caps, like he wanted it to scream but didn't know how. Inside, I found paper trails. Bank statements, wire transfers, printed emails. At first, it looked like standard financial clutter. Until I saw Riker's name. $1,500. Studio deposit. $3,200. Tasha's dental surgery. $6. $800. Emergency relocation. And the worst one, $15,000. Simply labeled bridge. Each line item hit like a hammer. Emmett hadn't just given Riker money. He'd been quietly bailing him out for over 2 years, without ever telling me. without once asking if we should, without so much as a post-it note left behind. And here I was still grieving the man. And now SD. But it wasn't the money that got me. Not really. We were comfortable. What devastated me was the lie. The deliberate choice to XM. There was more though. Folded between 2 pages of bank printouts was a letter. Handwritten. Emmett's penmanship was unmistakable, neat, slanted. A little too forceful at the start of each sentence. Riker, this is the 3rd time you've told your mother something that doesn't match what you told me. I've stayed quiet because I thought you needed time, not judgment. But I'm not blind. I see what's happening and I'm starting to wonder if you do too. If this last transfer isn't for what you said it was, we're done. I love you. But I won't let you use your mother's kindness against her. Dad. He never sent it. I sat at Emmett's desk, the same one where he used to do our taxes with a calculator older than Riker himself, and I stared at the letter like it was a ghost. It felt like a betrayal within a betrayal. Emmett had known something was wrong, had seen what was happening, and yet he'd protected Riker. From me. Why? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I walked the house like a ghost myself, touching things, remembering, regretting. The toaster still had the crumb tray out. His slippers were still by the back door. I even found his glasses in the fridge, which would have made me laugh once. At 3:12 a.m., I opened my laptop. Not to email anyone. Not to research grief therapy or look up estate lawyers. I opened it to document everything. Every transfer. Every note. Every lie Riker had wrapped in a bow and handed to us like a gift. The next morning, Riker showed up. No warning. No apology in advance. Just the sound of tires on gravel and a knock at the door like nothing had happened. I opened it to see him standing there in jeans and a hoodie, hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes darting like a teenager caught sneaking in after curfew. Behind him, Tasha was in the car. Engine running, sunglasses on. I could barely see her face, but I knew her expression. Riker gave a small smile. Hey, Mom. I didn't answer. Just stepped aside. He walked in slowly. Like the air inside was heavier than he expected. He didn't look at Emmett's chair. Didn't look at the bookshelf we built together when he was 13. Just sat on the edge of the couch and rubbed his palms on his knees like he needed friction to exist. I should have come sooner, he started. You should have come at all, I said. Silence. He looked down. Tasha thought it would just make things harder. Seeing you. Seeing everything. She's not wrong, I replied. He winced. I know I messed up. Things have been tight. Work's been spotty. We had some medical bills. I raised my hand. Riker, don't pretend this is new. Don't act like I didn't find the folder. The transfers. The note Dad wrote you. His mouth snapped shut. Then opened. Then shut again. I never meant to lie. I cut in. To take without talking? To let your father die wondering if he failed you? He looked like I'd slapped him. Good. I didn't know he felt that way, Riker whispered. I leaned forward, calm as steel. You didn't ask. He stared at the floor. I stared at him. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't about money. This wasn't about grief. This was about character. My son, my only child, had chosen comfort over compassion. He had watched his parents age, grow tired, shrink into retirement, and still reached for more. And now I wasn't sure I recognized the man in front of me. I'm going to change the will, I said plainly. His head shot up. What? I stood. Walked over to the mantel where Emmett's urn now sat between 2 photos, our wedding day and the first time Riker rode a bike. You'll get a letter from the lawyer next week. Mom, wait, come on. That's not fair. I turned, met his eyes. You want to talk about fair? Your father called you the night before he died. He wanted to talk. He felt something. And you didn't answer. Riker swallowed hard. I didn't know. I had my phone on silent. I didn't know it was that serious. It was your father. It was always serious. He didn't argue after that. Just stood up, muttered something about being sorry, and walked out the door like it wasn't already closing behind him. He didn't look back. But I did. Because that was the moment I understood. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's submission. And I had submitted long enough. The letter arrived 4 days later. Not from the lawyer, not yet. This one was handwritten, unmarked, and slipped into my mailbox without a stamp. No return address. No envelope seal. Just folded paper tucked into itself like a secret trying not to get caught. But I knew who it was from the moment I saw my name. Marla. Underlined once. No, Mom, no, Mrs. Callahan. Just Marla, crisp, clean, and distant. Tasha always had a way of writing like she was crossing out your warmth one pen stroke at a time. Inside was a square of pale pink stationery, scented faintly of her citrus perfume, a passive-aggressive olfactory weapon. The note read, I'm sorry things are difficult right now. Riker is doing his best. I hope you won't do anything drastic. Families heal if you let them. Tasha. I stared at it for a long time, not because I needed to reread it, but because I needed to hold on to my restraint. Drastic in her world meant consequences. Healing meant suppressing. And if you let them, meant this is your fault now. I didn't respond. Instead, I poured myself a cup of Emmett's favorite roast, the one he kept stashed behind the cereal. Labeled in his handwriting, do not touch unless someone dies. I'd only opened it once before. This was the second time. I stood in the kitchen, holding the warmth of the mug like a defense mechanism, and let the memory of his voice fill the room again. Then I sat at the same table where he had collapsed just 2 weeks earlier and began writing a letter of my own. But it wasn't to Riker. And it wasn't to Tasha. It was to Lillian. Lily, our granddaughter. The only person in this family who still looked at me without calculation. The one who called Emmett Pop, even into her teens. Who used to crawl onto his lap during Sunday night football. Not because she cared about the game, but because that's where it felt safe. The letter I wrote to her was 6 pages long. I told her the truth. Not the kind of truth adults usually polish for children. The real kind, the kind we bury under phrases like, you'll understand when you're older. I told her what happened to Pop. How he died. How her father didn't come. How Tasha smiled for an Instagram photo while I stood by an empty casket. I didn't write out of vengeance. I wrote because someone had to remember what love looked like before it got edited. The next day I called Alan, the family attorney. He'd known Emmett for over 3 decades. Handled his business filings, estate planning, even sent us hand-signed birthday cards. Alan answered on the first ring. I need to change the will, I said. He was silent for a moment. Then said quietly, you're sure? As sure as I was when I married a man who never let me pay for my own movie ticket. Then come in tomorrow. When I walked into Alan's office, I wasn't the widow anymore. I was the historian. I brought evidence. The folder of bank transfers. The letter Emmett wrote to Riker and never sent. Printouts of text messages. A photo of Tasha's birthday mimosa, time-stamped during Emmett's funeral. Alan didn't ask why. He just nodded and started writing. We structured the trust so that Lily would receive the full estate, but only after she turned 25. Early access would be granted only for education or housing, nothing extravagant. No cars. No jewelry. No last-minute guilt gifts from absentee parents. I added a clause that if Riker or Tasha ever contested the will, Lily would immediately gain full control of all assets. And the contesting party would be disqualified entirely, including visitation rights during the trust's active years. It felt harsh. But then again, so did burying your husband alone. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the maples in our backyard, I sat with a glass of wine and the final draft in front of me. 16 pages of legality and consequence. At the bottom of page 10 was a line that simply read, Beneficiary override activated under conditions of breach of familial duty and documented neglect. I hadn't written that line. Alan had. But I underlined it twice. Because if love could be tested, mine had been lit on fire. The next day, Alan mailed the certified copies. I got the delivery confirmation 2 days later. 11:17 a.m. Signed for by Riker Callahan. But I didn't get a call. Not that day. Not the next. Instead, I got a flurry of texts from Tasha. Wow. Classy. You seriously think this helps Lily? You're unbelievable. I didn't respond. Because sometimes silence is the loudest boundary you can set. But on the 3rd day, Riker finally called. Blocked number. Tired voice. Soft tone. Like the kind he used when he was a child and knew he broke something valuable. Mom, he said, I got the letter. I didn't answer. Is this real? I waited a moment. Then replied, you tell me. Is this real? Riker asked again. I let the silence stretch a beat longer than comfortable before answering. You tell me, I said flatly. He didn't respond right away. I imagined him standing in his kitchen, holding the phone with both hands like it might crack under the weight of the truth. I didn't know Dad felt that way, he finally said. And just like that, something in me snapped, not with anger, not even grief anymore, but with clarity. Clean, cold, unbending. You didn't know because you never asked, I replied. There was a long pause on his end. And then quietly the line clicked dead. I didn't call back. 2 weeks passed. I returned to routine, or the ghost of one. Coffee in the morning. Watering the herbs Emmett used to insist were a waste of backyard space. Sitting on the porch at twilight like it could teach me how to feel something again. And then they came. Unannounced. Uninvited. But not unexpected. I saw the car first. Tasha's silver crossover with the cracked taillight and a bumper sticker that said, "Grateful, not perfect." The irony almost made me laugh. She stepped out first, wearing heels too tall for the driveway and sunglasses too large for the late afternoon shade. Riker trailed behind her, hands in his pockets again like he couldn't quite remember what to do with them. I opened the front door before they rang the bell. Tasha started in immediately. Not with hello. Not with can we talk. But with fire. You're manipulating this family through legal threats, she said. Standing just outside the threshold like she didn't want to catch whatever moral disease she thought I had. I said nothing. Just stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Letting the weight of her words evaporate into the quiet between us. You're punishing us for setting boundaries, she added, her voice rising slightly. She had rehearsed that line. Probably in front of a mirror. Maybe in front of Riker. And that's when I saw it. Not rage. Not even entitlement. Smugness. The tilt of her chin. The fake moral superiority. The idea that somehow, even now, she believed she still held the high ground. I stepped aside just enough to let them in. Not because I wanted them there, but because I knew Lily was upstairs, and I had a feeling she was listening. They walked into the living room, Tasha first, like a lawyer entering the courtroom she built in her head. Riker moved like a shadow, head down, eyes anywhere but mine. They sat across from me. We've talked to a lawyer, Tasha said, crossing her legs with too much force. And if this will isn't revised, we may have grounds to question your capacity. I blinked once, then asked calmly, Are you threatening to declare me mentally unfit? Tasha shrugged. I'm just saying, grief does strange things. Riker flinched at that, subtle but noticeable. Whether it was guilt or just second-hand shame, I didn't care. Upstairs, I heard the soft creak of floorboards. Lily, still listening, still absorbing. I turned to Riker directly. Do you agree with her? He looked up, startled. Then down again. No answer. That silence told me everything. He wouldn't stop her. He wouldn't stand up for me. Not even for his father's memory. Not when it meant conflict at home. Not when it meant choosing something harder than neutrality. Tasha took his silence as permission. She leaned in. You're tearing this family apart over money. I laughed. A dry, hollow sound. The kind you make when tragedy gets so absurd you can't do anything else. No, I said. Your husband did that when he didn't show up to his own father's funeral. And you did it when you toasted your birthday during his eulogy. I saw her flinch, but not much. The kind of flinch reserved for when someone lands closer to the truth than expected. And then from the stairs came the softest sound. Lily's footsteps. She was halfway down, still in her socks, standing tall in that quiet, thoughtful way she inherited from Emmett. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, then at Riker, then Tasha. Tasha turned, startled, but didn't speak. Lily just stood there for a moment, and then with slow, deliberate steps turned and walked back upstairs. She didn't slam her door. She didn't have to. The silence she left behind was louder than anything else in the room. Tasha tried to recover, but her voice wavered for the first time. She doesn't understand. She understands more than you think, I replied. And with that I stood up, walked to the front door, opened it wide and said, We're done here. Riker got up first. Still no eye contact. Still nothing. Tasha hesitated, just a beat, like she wanted to say something else, maybe something sharp, maybe something pitiful. But she didn't. She just walked out. Heels clicking against the tile like punctuation marks no one asked for. I closed the door behind her before the last one hit the porch. Later that night, I found something unexpected. An envelope. No stamp. No return address. Slid under the front door sometime after they left. It was addressed in handwriting I knew instantly, Lily's. Inside, a black flash drive. No note. Just my name. Written in 12-year-old handwriting. Grandma. I held the flash drive in my hand like it was something sacred. Or something dangerous. Maybe both. It was small, no bigger than a key, but it felt heavy. Not physically. Heavily in the way things do when they're soaked in truth. Lily hadn't said a word. She didn't have to. The way she wrote, Grandma, on the envelope told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sending me a birthday card. She wasn't leaving a love note. She was giving me something she didn't trust anyone else to hold. I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and sat down at Emmett's old desk, the same one where I'd found the folder labeled Trust. I plugged in the drive, took a breath, and opened the first folder. It was named Kitchen Night. The video was grainy, the angle slightly off. It had clearly been recorded from behind a cracked bedroom door. I could see the edge of a hallway, a sliver of our kitchen, and hear the voices crystal clear. Ember first. She's manipulating everyone with that will. And if Lily sides with her, I swear to God, Riker will pull her out of school and homeschool her until she gets her head on straight. Then Riker, quieter. Just let Mom run her game. It's not like we were counting on the money right now anyway. If Lily plays nice, she can still help us later. I paused the video. I felt nothing. Not sadness. Not rage. Just confirmation. The kind of hollow relief you get when the tumor is finally named. At least now I wasn't crazy. At least now the whisper in my head saying this isn't just grief had a name. And that name was Betrayal. There were more files. Screenshots of texts. Voice recordings. One particularly painful clip where Tasha said, laughing, "She'll cave. She always does. Widow guilt is just a phase." But the most devastating thing wasn't the content. It was the folder at the bottom. If something happens to me. Inside, a single text document. Lily had typed it. Carefully. Grandma. I didn't know who else to tell. I hear things when they think I'm asleep. I know they're lying. I believe you. I'm saving this in case you ever need help. Love, Lily. I cried for the first time in weeks. Not because I was hurt. Not even because I was angry. I cried because in a house where truth was treated like poison, my granddaughter had chosen to carry it like armor. She was 12. 12. And already she knew the weight of silence. Already she understood the need to document, protect, prepare. I backed up the files, one copied to the cloud, one to a second flash drive. That second one I placed in a fireproof safe. The original I handed to Alan, our lawyer, the next morning. He didn't ask questions. Just nodded and added it to the trust file. Within a week, mediation was scheduled. It took place downtown. In a neutral gray office with pleather chairs and polite bottled water. Riker and Tasha arrived first. Tasha wore a sharp suit like she was auditioning for a courtroom drama. Riker looked smaller than I remembered. Shrunk. Hollow. I didn't greet them. Neither did Alan. The mediator opened with her script. We're here to address a dispute over the amendment of an existing trust. Tasha jumped in first. Of course. She's grieving irrationally, she said. She's rewriting the past. She's weaponizing her loss. Alan said nothing. I slid the flash drive across the table. The mediator looked puzzled. What's this? Evidence, I said. Calm. Low. Alan took over from there. He presented a file folder thick with documentation, bank transfers, Emmett's unsent letter, screenshots, and the transcripts from Riker's visit. And then the flash drive. The mediator listened. Reviewed. Paused. Then turned to Tasha. Were you aware that your daughter recorded conversations where you discussed potentially altering the trust through coercion? Tasha's face went pale. Then blotchy. Then red. She's a child. She doesn't understand what she heard. But she understood enough to record it, the mediator replied. The room shifted after that. You could feel it. Like the temperature had dropped 20 degrees. Riker didn't speak. Just wrung his hands and stared at the floor. Eventually, the mediator closed the folder and said, There is no legal basis to challenge the trust. In fact, given this evidence, Any further attempt to do so would be considered harassment. Tasha stormed out. Riker stayed behind, lingering like he had something to say. But he didn't. When he finally spoke, it was barely a whisper. I didn't know it got that bad. You didn't want to know, I said. He nodded, quietly, and left. And just like that, it was over. Not with a bang, not with a hug, but with the quiet realization that nothing else needed to be said. 2 years later, Lily turned 18 last Friday. She showed up at my door at noon, holding the sealed letter I'd written her all those years ago. 6 pages of truth, of memory, of legacy. She hadn't opened it yet. I want to read it with you, she said. So we did. We sat on the porch, Emmett's favorite place, and I watched as she read every word, her lips moving silently, her eyes watering only once. When she finished, she hugged me tighter than she ever had before. Thank you, she whispered, for not letting them rewrite him. That afternoon, we went to her high school graduation. When they called her name, Lillian Marla Whitfield, she looked at me, smiled, and winked. I almost lost it right there. After the ceremony, she showed me paperwork. Legal name change. I wanted my middle name to mean something, she said. Something that couldn't be stolen or twisted. That night, she moved in with me. Just for the summer, she said. But I didn't care how long. Her toothbrush in the bathroom. Her shoes by the door. Her laugh echoing through the kitchen, Emmett once filled with corny dad jokes. For the first time in years, the house felt whole again. Riker hasn't called since the mediation. Tasha moved out. Last I heard, she was blogging about emotional resilience from an Airbnb in Sedona. I don't miss them. Not because I don't love them, but because love without responsibility isn't love. It's just nostalgia. Lily still calls Emmett Pop. She still sets a place for him at dinner sometimes. We never say it out loud. But I know what she's doing. She's remembering who we were and reminding me of who we still are.
If this story stirred something in you, anger, sorrow, reflection, or even just a quiet me too, I'd love to hear what it made you feel. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts, your truth, or just a line you needed to say out loud. If you found meaning here, don't forget to like and subscribe. More stories are on the way, and who knows, the next one might just speak to a part of you didn't know needed a voice. Thanks for staying with me till the end. That alone means everything.